All right, howdy guys, and welcome to this edition of Kayleigh's Weather Workshop. So this week, if you've seen our post, or if you haven't rather, let's go through what materials you're going to need. You're going to need a clear baking dish. Now I said a 9 by 11 and we have a 9 by 11 over to my left right now with the experiment completed, but we'll take a look at that once we're done. For TV purposes, it was a little bit easier to see through this dish, so we're going to be using this one, but like I said, any sort of clear baking dish will do you just fine. You're going to need some modeling clay, Play-Doh, any sort of clay material that can be used as a barrier and can be ripped away relatively quickly. You're going to need a spoon. You're also going to need some food coloring. I have a mix of some blue and green for this week. And then you're also going to need some vegetable oil and some water. And it's about a cup or so of each. And I just have those over in some separate containers. I'm using mason jars. You can use cups, measuring cups, whatever you would like. So this week we are talking about what a weather front is. More specifically, we're going to focus on what a cold front is and how it impacted our weather last week. So last week we had that cold front move through and we had that light drizzle, freezing rain, ice was everywhere. It was a mess. We're going to talk about why that happens and talk about some density of air masses. So first thing we're actually going to do is blue food coloring and our green food coloring, or whatever color you may choose. We're going to take our water and we're going to put a few drops in. So this water in our experiment is going to represent the cold air. So that's why I'm using some cooler colors, that green and blue. And then we'll set that off to the side. There's a few more drops of blue. And then take your spoon and give it a little mix. Okay. That's done. We can set it off to the side. We'll get to it in just a second. So now we're going to go back over to our clay, and I'll move my box of it out of the way so you can see my plate. Now I've just cut a few strips, and all you're going to do is kind of squish it into a nice little line and then put it right in the center of your baking dish. So we're going to start to make a line down the center of this dish. And sometimes Play-Doh will be a little bit more malleable. So if you have that lying around, it'll probably be a little bit easier to form. But we're gonna go ahead and stick this on the bottom. You want it to be pretty high because you don't want these liquids. We're going to pour one in one side and one in the other. You're not going to want them to mix until you take out your barrier here. So we're going to keep on building. Make sure it's squished down really well. Again, you don't want any mixing before you take it away yourself. Alrighty, I think we have a pretty good barrier here. So again, just right down the middle, right down the center, or center-ish. So this is going to be our ground level. And now that it is squished down all the way, we're going to go back over to our liquids. I'm going to take this spoon out so I don't get food coloring everywhere. And we're first going to pour the blue. This is our cold air mass, okay? So this is the cold front that's advancing its way towards us. And we're going to pour that into one side of our dish. Oh, and we have some leakage. Oh no! It's fine. It's fine. Sometimes this happens, guys. This is why I did it earlier. So we're just gonna pour this really, really quickly. This is our oil, and your oil is representing your warm air. And we can kind of already see what's happening, but I'm gonna take out this barrier here real quick. Again, that's why you gotta make it really high. Okay, we're pulling it out, and now it's mixing. Now again, we didn't get that immediate mix of both of them since we had a little bit of leakage going on, but again, that happens. In science, things happen like that. So you're gonna wanna wipe your hands, get the oil and the food coloring off. So what we're seeing is right now just kind of a mix of that blue and that yellow oil. But if we look really, really closely, we can see that the blue water, that cold air mass, is much heavier than the warm one. So it's sinking underneath it. So when these two different air masses meet, that cold front is the barrier between them. And when we see those two air masses mixing, that warmer air mass is going to ride up over the colder one. Now, why did we see rain and that icky freezing drizzle and freezing rain when we had that cold front move through last week? Now that is all thanks to something meteorologists call isentropic uplift or frontal overrunning. And basically what that means is what we just represented here. We have that warmer air gliding over the blue cold air mass. And as that warm air goes over the cold air mass, it starts to form clouds, condense. And that's when we start to see the rain come. Now, when we have the air mass, the colder air mass that is closer to the ground, when it gets cold enough, that is when we're going to start to see that freezing mix of precipitation possible. So what we're going to do here, before I pull out the other one that we made so we can see the clearer mix, we're going to take our spoon and just mix it up a little bit, just to prove to ourselves that the oil is actually on top of, or the warmer air in this case, is actually on top of that colder air. There we go. Give it a good old mix. And give it a second. As it sits there, you can start to see, especially if you get eye level with your baking dish, that's when you'll start to see that oil on top of that cold blue air mass. So this is basically what happened to our atmosphere as we saw it last week. Now I'm going to carefully move this out of the way and try not to jostle the other one so we can see what it was supposed to look like if I built my barrier high enough. But that's okay, because in science we make mistakes and we learn from them. So I'm going to carefully move this. So this is what really happened. You can see that clear separation of the oil that is on this side is riding over the blue cold water. And again, really at home, your best point of view in this experiment is going to be to get down and get eye level with your pan. And you can see again that that cold air mass is much denser than the warm air mass and is sinking below. And again, that's how we saw that cloud cover form and that rain. And we can do the same thing that we just did with our other pan over there. And we're going to do a little bit of a mix. There we go. Keep on mixing it. And it's a little bit easier to see in this one that it's still staying separate. Again, the warmer air is much less dense than the colder air and is staying separated. We can even get these fun little bubbles. But y'all, that's pretty much our experiment for this week. And that's what a weather front is. It is any sort of boundary between two different air masses that have lots of different characteristics. And when those two air masses meet, that's when you start to see interesting weather phenomenon happen. All right, so we will actually see you here next week, since we had to take a week off last week, for another installment of Kayleigh's Weather Workshop. If you try this at home, send me pictures, send me videos of you doing this experiment. And if you have any sort of ideas for experiments or weather topics that you just want to know more about, shoot me an email and I will come up with an experiment just for you guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.